Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar comic review. This is going to be a kind of non-spoiler, kind of advanced review, and it's going to be for the Rift Part 1. You can see the cover here. So obviously this is the first part of the third Avatar comic series after The Promise, and then the second series, The Search. So this book obviously isn't out until March 5th in comic book stores and March 18th from Amazon and regular bookstores. But I got a advanced kind of review, digital review copy from Dark Horse, which was great. So I got a review up on the site. Link to my written review of the comic in the description below. But yeah, I'm going to try and talk a little bit about some different things in this video review. But yeah, obviously the Rift Part 1, brand new comic series. My initial reactions are basically just that it's a very different kind of feeling comic to the other ones. Just because we knew more or less what to expect, I think, from the first two comics, because they were natural kind of progressions from the series Avatar: The Last Airbender. The Promise covers leadership issues with these our young characters growing into leadership roles, obviously Zuko being Fire Lord and Aang being the Avatar in a world that's not at war anymore and having to make decisions. And then the Search, of course, dealing with the issue of Zuko's mother, Ursa, and that whole story. And we knew roughly what to expect from that. With the Rift, we really get a whole kind of clean slate in terms of not much kind of like in terms of plot connection to the series Avatar: The Last Airbender. There are a few character links and stuff like that. Primarily, the issue of Toph and her parents is, I think, going to be addressed in this book as well. So that's the kind of one real thing that's like linked into the series, because that's kind of was one of the big unresolved character arcs from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Toph and her parents, because she sent the letter off in the runaway, wasn't addressed again. I think the Promise made one mention that she's still upset at her parents, kind of hinting that she probably didn't meet them again. So there hasn't been any kind of interaction since then. And obviously from the preview for the Rift Part 1, the 8 pages that have been released already, you can see that she's addressing that as well. So that's good, and I can confirm that there is some other stuff with Toph addressing her parents. I'm going to try and make this as spoiler free as possible, but obviously to talk about the book I have to address some things. I'm going to do my best to stick to discussing stuff that has been touched upon in the 8-page preview as well as the description for this book. So I'm going to try not to touch on too much new stuff, but obviously in part you'll be watching this review for some of the new stuff, so I'll try and give you some new bits of information without spoiling too much. So yeah, in terms of main plot of the story, you can tell from the description and preview that this book is primarily an Aang and Toph focused story, and the setup for the plot is basically that Aang gets a visit from Avatar Yang Chen. It's mysterious. He doesn't know what it's about. He then is reminded, because he's met Yang Chen again, of this Air Nomad festival, the Yang Chen festival, and decides to bring 3 of his air acolytes who have accompanied him to this Yu Dao meeting at the start of the book to the site where the air nomads celebrate this festival, because he celebrated it in the past when he was younger. That's the flashback from the preview. And there basically we see that the statue from the cover and the preview is there. That's fine. But then when they go down to the meadow, which is also a reference in the preview, they find that a Fire Nation refinery is built on the land. The one new page, I suppose, from the book I'm going to show you is this page, which is when Aang first sees that the factory is there. I think this is the page that no one's seen yet, so you can have a look at that there. So that's the reaction, obviously, to the refinery being built on this land that's sacred to air nomads. And straight away, that presents the kind of, I suppose, issue theme of the book. That also links in with the Aang and Toph conflict. That is basically, I think, what the rift from the title is referring to, unless something else comes up, which there is a lot of mystery to the book as well. That Aang obviously is trying to teach these air acolytes with him the like culture of the air nomads, and that's important because obviously he is the last air nomad, last airbender. He needs to kind of keep his culture alive, so you understand why he's being kind of very traditional about a lot of stuff. But Toph is kind of trying to avoid being traditional because of her past, and so she kind of comes to blows a little bit with Aang over, is it correct for, technological progress to go over tradition, or should tradition be maintained even as the world is evolving? And they managed to present this conflict in a way where it's not like Aang Zuko from The Promise, where their friendship was at risk. It's just they're arguing over an issue that's kind of important to both of them, and it's not the sense that like they're gonna suddenly not be friends anymore, but there is a little bit of an issue between the two of them, and I like that they do that. It kind of feels like Aang and Toph's version of Katara and Toph from The Runaway and The Chase from the show, in that you knew it was just kind of these early kind of growing pains, and they just have like issues with their personalities that don't quite click together, just showing that the group is not perfect. And the same with these two, which when you really look back at the series, you didn't get an insane amount of time for just Aang and Toph to really interact. Really, Bitter Work was kind of the one of the only episodes where there was a huge focus on that, and you can see their different personalities there. And you sort of see that come out again with their issue here. They cover some other stuff. There's much more than that, but I won't spoil it. But that seems to be the primarily kind of character focused thing in the book. I'll say it right away. Zuko, Azula, Ursa are not in this part one. It is addressed, and here's the first page from the book, and you can actually see that it is addressed straight away why they're not in the story. Well, not Azula's not addressed, but obviously she ran away at the end of the search, part 3, and that makes sense. They're going to come back to that later on with another story, I assume. So you understand why Azula's not there, but obviously Zuko and his mother and her family are obviously going back to the Fire Nation capital for the first time. That's what the page says, and that's why they're not in the story. That makes sense. So you understand why they're not in it. They could obviously come back at the end to set up the next story, at the end of the rift to set up the next story. But primarily our group is Aang, Sokka, Katara, Toph, and the 3 air acolytes, who are Yi Li, Xing Ying, XingYing. We also met her we met both of these characters in The Promise, and then Jingbo, who is a new air acolyte who we haven't met yet, who makes his debut here, who is a younger boy air acolyte. We don't get an incredible amount on their personalities, but them being there makes sense because it's obviously kind of primarily a teaching field trip for Aang that means everyone goes along to this festival. And so you do get points where Aang is acting like a teacher, and you see him being very confident as like little conflicts come up, and he's showing the air nomad style of dealing with this stuff. And that also leads a little bit into, the way Aang is acting kind of annoys Toph a bit because she doesn't like being too traditional, and there's some nice stuff around it, and they're not just kind of there for the sake of being there, they have a kind of plot reason to be there. Katara's there obviously because she's Aang's girlfriend, and as well as that, it is set up in The Promise that she was annoyed with herself, that she was kind of getting angry at Aang in The Promise for hanging around with all these girls from his fan club, when he just appreciated the fact that he could finally be like the old days, have his culture back for a while, and she felt bad about that. So you understand why she wants to go with him on these kind of air acolyte kind of field trips too, to understand its culture more, because she feels bad about that. Sokka plays an interesting role as well, even though while he hasn't been the huge focus of The Promise or the Search, the same is here, but he plays an interesting role in that there's a kind of technological theme to this. As I mentioned, Toph kind of supporting the refinery being there. Sokka plays the role of that guy who's just like, he likes inventions, and so he likes all this new technology, and he starts kind of messing around with it, and he just plays that role of the guy who likes technology but is not directly involved in the argument surrounding it. And it's just an interesting role, makes sense for his character, and it makes sense that he is there as their friend, even though he doesn't have like a character arc, because not every character in every story has to have a dramatic character arc. They can be there just because they're friends with someone else, and that's the kind of role he plays. There are a bunch of new characters and some returning faces from Avatar: The Last Airbender. I won't go into too much depth on them, other than to say this: Katara gets a page or two where they just set up something where she meets some girls from her tribe. I'm not going to say what happens or anything like that, but it's just interesting. It's very interesting. There's just a little focus, and they seem to be giving Katara this little plot. It's only addressed on those 2 pages, but there's some setup there, and I like that they're just doing these little things as well as the main story. So that was cool to see. As I said in my written review, Toph develops a crush on one of the new characters we meet, and obviously we see I said in my written review that she kind of shows her softer side, but that's a quote from Katara in that she enjoys seeing Toph show her softer side. It's not that she changes because she has the crush. It's just that she's not. She kind of lets down that really kind of tough kind of exterior that she usually has, and is just a little bit nicer. It's not that she's just suddenly being like all flirty and stuff like that. It's kind of true to her character, I think. That said, she did show a little bit of kind of her softer side in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Remember when she thought it was Sokka who rescued her from the water, but then it was Suki, and she kind of like hugged him and kissed him on the cheek, but it turned out it was Suki. So she's not like adverse to completely showing this sort of emotion, and we just see a little bit of that. Not exactly sure what they're going to do with the crush, but as I said, mystery is one of the key things to this book. Without going into too much depth, just referencing the description and stuff like that, there's obviously this statue on the front cover of the book that's related to the Avatar Yang Chen festival, but Aang obviously wasn't paying attention. That's part of his character. On all these things, he just wanted to have fun, so it wasn't really paying attention to the history lessons about this sort of thing. So you have this interesting role where he's trying to teach the Air Acolytes the kind of in-depth workings of the air nomad kind of culture, yet he didn't pay the best attention himself to all of this stuff, and so there's a lot of mystery surrounding what the festival is actually celebrating. And the appearances of Avatar Yang Chen, there's some intrigue to that, because it's not your usual visit from an Avatar, in that it goes a bit differently, and I think that's going to reference the fact that at some stage that Aang kind of cut ties with Roku, destroying the fire pendant on his kind of bead thing, and I think that probably is going to play a role at some point, that being addressed. And then obviously there's some mysteries around this refinery and the mysterious pollution around the place, which seems to be the big plot mystery, in that they basically hint at the fact that this pollution wasn't directly caused by the factory polluting. Like, you can see from the page that I showed you earlier on that the factory has a lot of smoke and stuff like that coming out of it. So it is polluting, but they show you like that the place is really polluted to the point where this factory, which hasn't been open that long, couldn't possibly have done it. But there's a lot of mystery surrounding it, and that's really cool. I really like the idea that they're setting this up. It kind of may appear like it's a direct copy of like the Painted Lady, the pollution plot there, but it's different just because it's not the obvious thing, the factory's polluting the thing. There's a mystery to it as well. Not to mention, like, there's a little bit of kind of politics around this sort of thing, in that this refinery, as stated in the description, is a joint-owned Fire Nation and Earth Kingdom business venture, basically. I think it's called the Earth and Fire Refinery. So, Earthen Fire Refinery, and it's a kind of play on Earth, apostrophe N apostrophe Fire. But, yeah, it's a kind of funny name, but... yeah, there's some business stuff, like now that the whole thing in Udao is settled, they have a proper government, as you can see from like the first page. You have these kind of business ventures happening, and you see the place going further and further towards the idea of Republic City, this place where people from all nations live, and as well as that, you have some other business stuff as well going on, and it's just there's a lot of interesting stuff in this book. It's not like unbelievably exciting or fast paced or anything like that. It's set up for this story. It is a part one. You don't expect it. There are 2 parts still to come, but it's a nice setup mystery. It's a book where I'm trying to avoid spoilers here, but I wouldn't really say that there are any like major spoilers for this thing, and that even the cliffhanger ending, I think to some extent is kind of predictable given what some of the characters say earlier on, and it's not the kind of on the level of potentially Oza is not Zuko's father. It's nothing like that. It's just after you get the cliffhanger, part 2 and 3 are going to be interesting because of this reveal. So it kind of just makes you more excited for part 2 and 3, adds an extra layer to things. But yeah, I don't have much else to say really. Definitely, if you have any questions, ask me in the comments below. I'll try and answer them without spoiling too much. But yeah, I thought it was a really good book. I'm definitely going to buy it myself. Obviously, I think the Avatar comics have been really solid so far with these two. But the Rift seems to be picking up nicely, and obviously, as I said, we're entering a kind of period where they're really just the comics are the comics. They're not like obvious kind of continuations of the show, and I like that. It's really showing some of the creative stuff they can do, and I hope the comics continue on. But anything else I need to add about the Rift before I go? Not really. I don't think there's much else to say without spoiling anything. It's interesting, solid, not mind-blowingly exciting as it is set up, but definitely worth your time. I think when it comes out March 5th in comic book stores. I'll do a proper like spoiler review probably March 4th or 5th. Just so you know, I could actually discuss this fully without having to like hold my tongue on certain topics. But yeah, thanks for watching this review, and bye.